the first thing for me is like nature, the outside, the love of the wild. That's brilliant. So that's one bubble. And then your next bubble is you want to give people this luxury stay, and you want it to give them a feeling that they might not have had before. And then the third bubble, which is really important, is that all of this needs to come with no cost to the environment. So there's sustainability, and it's hugely important at the moment. It can't say enough how important it is. People are starting to feel it now, like in their homes and with everything to do with the cost of things. But looking after what we've got is so important. So you've got this lovely sweet spot between, you've got nature, you've got the luxury stay, and then you've got the environment. And then right in the middle, where they all cross, that's kind of where I like to put Lilypod.
Glamping and unique holiday rentals are surging in popularity with the growing desire of customers to book holidays that deliver an experience. They are also the new business of choice for those wanting to improve their work-life balance. So how do you build a strong business like this that gives you the life you need and a great investment? I'm Sarah Riley, and I want to share what I've discovered after being immersed in this industry for over 20 years to inspire you to find out more about what's going on. Welcome, this is the business of glamping and unique holiday rentals. Hal, thank you so much for joining me today. It's really amazing to have you here. I am so pleased that you've given me some of your time, because actually I adore your project, and
Thank you.
It's so unique, it's so special, and I know it's, as soon as the secret gets out about it, it's just going to be booked out and people are going to find it hard to get a place there.
Yeah, hopefully.
And
hey?
yeah. And I know it will, because you've
Yeah.
come up with such a unique idea and you've crafted it all yourself. But I'm not going to go into the detail of that yet. I'm going to whet people's appetite about that. First of all, how does it feel now that you've welcomed your first guests and they've been through the door and they've been leaving reviews? How does that all feel for you, having worked so hard on your project?
If I step back from that question, it's a brilliant question, but to put that question into context for everyone who's maybe listening and watching, it's taken energy, it's taken so much perseverance to get to where we're at, and so in length of time, it was like 5 years from having an idea to be able to kind of get it to where it is now, which is a product. It's launched, and it's just at the beginning of its journey. It's so weird to have worked for 5 years, and then I'm only at the beginning, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And you know what? My first guest check-in was, I was so nervous because I love my pod that I've built, because when you make something and you design it and you give it as much love and you give it all your hopes, all your aspirations, because you want it to be amazing. Really do. And I love creating spaces which make people just feel just something different, like a real escape from wherever they're at. And so I had all these dreams for it. And so, yeah, I was super nervous when the first guest came in. And I probably talked too much. I probably talked a bit too quickly, but they certainly had a thorough welcome, which is probably good. In the back of my mind, I was constantly kind of going, you need to leave them alone now. They're not your friends. You just need to let them have their holiday. And you know what? They had an amazing time, like a really, really amazing time. So yeah, feedback was brilliant, which is always lovely to receive. But yeah, it's funny. It's a real roller coaster, because Lilypod, and this first pod is called Heron Pod, and absolutely my baby. And so, it's I greet it in the mornings when I see it. I pat her when I leave. I make sure that she's got everything she needs to give her guests the most amazing time.
That's something that I've really noticed about you, is that you refer to her as she and her,
definitely.
and it's human, it's a person, it's a being, it's a thing that you've created that is more than just accommodation.
When you give something that much energy, then it kind of reflects back on you. It really does. And so when I go in there, it's full of so much energy. It's because everything in it, I would say, is hand built. like literally everything. I've sort of bought nothing off the peg. And if it is bought off the peg, I've probably changed it, adapted it, cut it in half, done something with it. It's just the way it is.
Do you think as well it's because you're so wrapped in nature because of its location where it is and what you've built it with, the materials, the wood, and it's all been crafted with your energy, which again is natural, and it's very much your design, your eye, and your energy.
What I found incredible about it is that it was important to start with a good sort of, it's more than just an object. So as a structure, it's a wooden geodesic dome, and that is itself lovely to have, because rather than that sort of half a golf ball tent type system which is out there, it's timber on the inside and it's timber on the outside, which is lovely. It's a beautiful thing to be able to make and have, but you have to walk 12 meters out onto the water to go stay on Lilypod. And so to be immersed in nature, that's definitely a way of making that happen. There's loads of reasons why I chose to make something floating. And I mean, lots of reasons. But the fact that it is, and as a stay, it really is immersive. I've got guests coming in on Friday, and I know they're going to have a nice time. They're going to have an amazing time. So I prepared the pod yesterday, just made sure it was nice. And oh my God, I didn't want to leave. It's absolutely hooching outside, full of rain. Inside it's beautifully warm. The timbers, because there's naked timbers absolutely everywhere. You put some soft lighting in, and just the warmth that comes through. So it just makes you feel, like you said, cocooned. It makes you feel very safe. It's cozy. And we've tried to give it a really high-end luxury feel. But if you imagine the intersection of kind of like, you've got the first thing for me is like nature, the outside, the love of the wild. That's brilliant. So that's one bubble. And then your next bubble is you want to give people this luxury stay, and you want it to give them a feeling that they might not have had before. And then the third bubble, which is really important, is that all of this needs to come with no cost to the environment. So there's sustainability, and it's hugely important at the moment. It can't say enough how important it is. People are starting to feel it now, like in their homes and with everything to do with the cost of things. But looking after what we've got is so important. So you've got this lovely sweet spot between, you've got nature, you've got the luxury stay, and then you've got the environment. And then right in the middle, where they all cross, that's kind of where I like to put Lilypod. That's where she sits. That's the sweet spot. And I think the guests who find her have that same thing. So when you stay on her and it's really wet, it really is. It's so soggy. You're not really going to go outside that much, but your view from Lilypod is just like, you've got 50 meters of lake to the other side. And on the other side, you have a waterfall. And because the lake's actually quite calm, you're on the water because you get this soft undulating feeling. It's so relaxing. It's something you've got to go there to see. It's just amazing.
One of the things you do is you describe it in a really impactful way. So you talk about it as a low carbon floating sanctuary on a private lake powered by the sun, hewn from Devonian timber with its own waterfall. I mean, how amazing is that? Just invokes so many things. But what is it about being on that water? And you say there that it interacts with the water and you feel the nature, and that's amazing. But how important is that to actually be that connected with nature for you and for what you want to provide your guests?
When you go camping and you have a tent, you're in the right spot, you can be really deeply connected to nature, because that can be to do with the environment. It can be to do with the fact that you've got somewhere without light pollution, without, there's noises, maybe, there's things that you're not used to, maybe as a human being living in your house on the day to day. And so when I want guests to come have an experience, come somewhere to stay and have those immersive feelings with what's around them. But I also want to have them to be able to, if they want to go have a power shower, they don't have to go anywhere. It's in their pod. And so I want to give them that sense of luxury, but also try and put them somewhere in an immersive state where they've not been before. And staying on water in an unusual structure throws you into that landscape or waterscape, whether you want to or not. As soon as you're there, your view in the morning, and it's also to do with interestingly to do with the level that you're at and what you see. I kind of mean by that is I've stayed on some lakeside places before, and you're quite elevated, and so the water it's beautiful to see, but you're not connected to it. You feel a physical distance between it, and it's lovely to stay on somewhere where you're at that water level. You just are. You can sit back in a beanbag and you watch, and you're right there. And if wildlife, and there's a lot of wildlife there, comes past, you're there. You're like this. It's really voyeuristic. It's beautiful.
So how does that translate in terms of the human? Because I'm actually listening to you and thinking, I love going to the beach. I love being on the water. My husband surfs all the time, and we constantly look for water to be around. Yeah. Do you think there's something very special about the energy of water and everything to do with that and the human? Do you think that there is some kind of, I mean, not wanting to get too woo-woo here, but do you think
there's nothing wrong with a bit of woo-woo. There's a lot of woo-woo that goes on to help sort of stabilize everything in my life, to be honest, because there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I live by the sea. I'm so in a past life, I'm a diving instructor. So yeah, my connection to the water feels quite personal. So anyone who's been on a beach holiday or likes to play in the sea, the other part of that, as well as the fun, is the reflectiveness of looking back. You can be really still when you look at water, because for me anyway. So on a personal level, water can be flat, it can be calm, you can lose yourself in reflection, you can just wind back and slow down. I think it helps the brain calm down, to be honest. I mean, we have this as mammals, we have this amazing feature that when we go underwater and we hold our breath, our heart rate slows down. Whereas you hold your breath on land, your heart rate will increase. And so that's called the mammalian reflex. And so water is part of us, to be honest. And so, yeah, being able to be part of it and be near it, yeah, hugely calming. It is for me. And I think it will be for anyone who sort of stays in that environment. It's good.
And I think more so than ever, because of what's been going on, over the past few years, it's been challenging for absolutely everyone, not just, one segment of the community or one population or one country. Yeah. Everyone around the world. There's not been anyone that hasn't been touched by what's been going on.
Yeah,
and
I agree with you.
We do
That's
really
why it's
need
good to lean into a bit of woo-woo, to be honest.
Because we do.
Out of, it's more, I have noticed it's more like mindset. Yeah, that's one way of describing it, but just like leaning into trust. I'm finding more people sort of being able to use that sort of language around me. And I find that quite interesting. That's been a real shift. And so people are leaning on different tools now to help themselves, aren't they? And I think being able to, people are always going to need somewhere to unplug. It's really important to unplug.
Absolutely. And I think so I always do a vision board at the start of the year, what I want to achieve, what I want on a personal level as well as a business level. And one of those is that I want to meditate more, and I want to do more heart math, heart math is a technique of meditating, but it's very much focused on the heart, which is supposed to be, or new research is showing that it's almost as powerful, if not more powerful, than the brain in terms of its impact on us. So sitting at your site would be incredible, to be able to use that as a place to meditate, to relax, to really almost take time. I can actually see it as a place I'd want to go on my own and practice these things to kind of help me bring down my stress levels, my anxiety levels, and really practice these techniques, because it's so tranquil. It's so glorious sitting where it sits. And describe a little bit about how it sits, because you have touched on there that you have to walk to get to it. So describe exactly what Lilypod is all about, and the local immediate environment.
Yeah, sure. So it was quite a journey to find where it's now located. But it's on the edge of Dartmoor in West Devon. So we just border the national park. So next to so Dartmoor's these huge kind of granite peaks or granite tors which are around. It is a stunning place to kind of even be in the presence of. It's really beautiful. Any national park generally is really beautiful. We're really lucky that round the corner from us, just less than 3 miles away, we've got Lidford Gorge, which is the deepest gorge in the southwest. So it's and the gorge is beautiful because it's running water again. It's that sort of, the gorge has been made by water, and so you're walking through a cut through that's been made by the power of nature, and it is absolutely stunning. And you get down to the bottom, there's the water level and the waterfall that's there. It's really stunning. So, and I'm mentioning that because it does make sense to where the pod is and what's made where it is. So it's the actual lake itself is probably about 120 years old, and so we were quite lucky. It's an old lime quarry, and so they used to power all the machines that they're with by a stream, and so that stream has now been turned into the waterfall. That's why we're lucky enough to have it. It just basically kept washing the road away, so they actually built it so that it would just discharge into the lake. And so that's so lucky because of that. It's beautiful. The quarry itself, it's had 100 years to mature and grow, and we're really lucky that the owner who's looked after the quarry, he's like in his 80s now, but he was born at Alder Farm, so he learned to swim in that quarry. He's been personally connected to it and has taken care of it, and I'm lucky enough to sort of be part of that, to be honest. And so I've been able to remodel it a little bit and have my business on there. But I can tell I've sort of inherited a lot of his passion of looking after that, because it looks as good as it does because of his energy, which is nice. The water itself it's a quarry, so it's fairly deep, and that gives it a richness that a sort of a shallower lake doesn't have. You get a clarity because of the water quality that's there, which is beautiful. There is so much life in it. So whilst I was building the pod, it took months for the fish to get used to me, but now they're almost like pets. They come to the pod and say hello, and so we feed them. I mean, there's some of the carp that are there, some of the species, they're as big as my leg. They're about like a meter big, and they'll come up and we'll almost say hello. They expect to be fed. And then you've got lots of smaller species, but there's something about it. It reminds you that it's alive. It reminds you that you are part of nature when you see it there. It's brilliant. There's 2 herons which live opposite the pod as well. And so I've got, because it's heron pod, and it was called heron pod way before we went there, because back to the woo-woo thing. So the heron for me is my totem bird. It's something that I look for when I go to see a site. And so when I went to see that site, I saw a pair of herons before I even put a business pitch to Alder Farm. And I was just like, this is it. This is my spot. And so it's funny how you look for things, don't you? That tell you that you're on the right track. And so when I got to that place, everything about it just said, it's here. It has to be here. So from knowing that, it took 2 years of perseverance to get it here, but we did. So stay with. If you've got the idea and you've got that dream, you got to stay with it.
Perseverance, as you said, because there's so many times you probably could have given up, but you didn't. You kept going, and there's always barriers, there's always hills to climb, there's always things to try to achieve, setbacks, knockbacks, and disappointments, but you just lifted yourself up through all of those things and kept going. And now, having worked with you a little bit on your launch and all of that kind of thing, I mean, how exciting is that? And I mean, what's the one thing that surprised you the most about your launch that you've recently done? You've done a bit of a soft launch, haven't you? Maybe more so we'll do a bigger launch later on, but what surprised you the most about that?
I think for me personally, and this is just probably how I feel because I'm connected to it, I had to almost basically let the pod go. That was probably quite a big one for me because you mentioned that you would like to go stay there on your own, and you can see that. So during the build, I've had quite a few nights down there, just me, because it's just the easiest thing to do because I live an hour away from the site. So you get quite connected with where you are, with what you're doing. My little girl who's 7, she summed it up really well. And I said that, I've got my first guest coming to the pod, and she looked shocked. She was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, this is our pod. This is not for other people. So she, and I get that because I felt a bit like that. And so that was the first part of it. I think the second part of it, which is the bit which is beautiful, is that people's genuinely gasp sometimes when they go on, and it's lovely. Really, it's really so having that reflection back from guests that even just arriving there is making them feel like, wow, that's great, that feels wonderful. It really does.
You must feel very proud.
Yeah, hugely proud, to be honest. And it's interesting to like, you need to stop and appreciate that because it's been so busy. I've probably not always taken the time to sort of go, oh my God, look what I've done. And it's nice to be able to look back. Not so when I go to the site now, I'm quite often got quite a busy head. I'm looking at so I'm building number 2 at the moment, where it's going to go, the logistics of that. Where am I with guest check-in, and just suddenly your mind suddenly gets really busy. It's nice to suddenly get, and every now and then it's nice to go, actually, I've done the changeover in the pod. I'm gonna make a coffee. I'm gonna sit and enjoy my own pod for a while, and that's what I did yesterday. And it's nice. It's grounding. It's gonna be there, kind of going, yeah. And I kind of had that feeling that you are right. So the launch was a nice soft launch, and I was a bit disappointed within myself for not being able to complete the pod in time for summer. But looking at it now, there's always, like, looking back and looking what I'm involved in now. Oh my God, I'm so glad for a soft launch, because every guest changeover, I'm probably still tweaking the pod. I'm still kind of going, okay, that didn't quite function as I wanted. And so I do all of that. So I'm fine tuning. And I think if I had to fine tune in summer with back-to-back guests, I would have been more stressful. So weirdly, the soft launch is a really good introduction for me. I'm not flat out. I'm still able to dial in the guest experience and the guest journey, which is great. And so, in a blink of an eye, it'll be spring again. And I should be, well, I will be in a much stronger position, because I would have, rather than just making it up on the fly.
And do you think the confidence is a big part of that as well? Because not only have you been tweaking and refining your service, you've also been building your own confidence in your product, in your service, in your ability to create an amazing space for somebody who's paying you money for that. Is that something
absolutely.
you think?
Yeah, it's true. So the positive feedback helps. And I've been really trying to encourage guests to kind of give me some feedback. And that's an interesting process in itself, to be honest, because some can be quite reserved. Some might not want to. And, but it's been, so, I only opened in November, but I've had 2 mini moon couples stay down there, and I've had 1 proposal.
Oh.
And so it's really, in a short space of time, it's that energy that I was talking about, that space of it's working for people. It's it's delivering what they expect. Because if you come on a mini moon, you've got some high expectations of what's there. And I'm so glad we're meeting those. That is interesting. And for someone to then pop the question on it, because it's they're going to remember where they were. He was quite a nervous guest, to be honest. So he was texting me a lot to do with, you could tell it was his nerves. But that was brilliant.
Oh, that is so heartwarming to know.
It's
that
lovely, isn't
what a
it?
story in itself. I wonder if they would be
really
happy to
sweet.
share their story with everyone. But I mean, to know that what you're offering is that impactful and that powerful, that someone is wanting to use it to create lifelong memories, and the beginning of a journey as a couple for them is just stunning and staggering, really.
Good, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? You must have felt amazing when you found that out.
Yeah, it's a nice, you know what? I was quite nervous when I did their checkout, because you don't know whether she's going to say yes.
Did she say yes? She did say yes. That's
she did
brilliant.
say yes, but you don't know, do you?
No.
And so I'm kind of, because I met them both, I kind of gave the client a bit of a look and kind of go, did you know? and then luckily they both sort of just told me all about it, which was great.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got another, we're really fortunate. We touched upon earlier on about where it is, and it is in a stunning place in Devon. We're quite lucky that we've got a real strong ace up our sleeve, really, which is so Alder Farm has this beautiful lake, and we're lucky enough to be on it, which is just amazing. But up literally on the farm is also a vineyard, and they've been that's where their love and energy has gone. You can really see it. And so they've been, I think the vines now are about 20 years old. I'm not a massive I'm learning about wine now that I'm there, for sure, but I think they need to be at least 10 or 15 to get a really decent flavor from them. And so so there's and they're what's called a single estate vineyard, which means they grow and they process the grape and they bottle it all on site there, which is it's quite something to see, and it's another guest experience that can be on offer, and which is lovely. It's there's nothing like it's funny to say it's good for British wine. It's just nice wine. It doesn't really matter where it's from. It's a lovely drop. It's really nice, and they do like a white and a blush, and because you can't have reds we're basically we don't have enough sun to produce that deep red flavor for red wine. But for the white and the blush, and they're just moving into champagne or sparkling.
Yeah, you can't say champagne.
You can't.
But champagne like sparkling wine.
And during COVID, as part of their sort of becoming single estate, so when they built all the infrastructure for their vats and all that stuff that you make for wine, they put a beautiful restaurant there as well. So guests can pop up. It's about sort of 5-6 minute walk, so they don't have to leave site. They can have somewhere, sit down, have breakfast, be cooked for, have that experience of being looked after, which is a bit special, to be honest.
That your guests are benefiting because you've found the landowners, you've forged that relationship, you've built that product in that area where you can actually take part in all of those activities and learn about wine and visit the vineyard, have a tour, and then sit in a restaurant. And that's all come from you. You're the source of that. But as you said, it took many years. But there's a lot of people who think about doing something in this space, glamping space or unique accommodation space, experiential space. And they often say, but I've got no land. I can't do anything. I'm struggling finding land. I need to do, how can I get some land? And you didn't. Instead, you decided to work with someone in a partnership way. Is there anything you would say to somebody as a bit of advice, what worked with you the best in that process of finding your land partner?
So yeah, you're right, and everyone who feels that way, I get. I was that person. I was there, kind of going, I don't have any land, and I didn't know I didn't know how to break out of that. I really didn't. And it took ages to learn how to break out of it. And then I set myself even harder a task by needing a lake. So, and that comes with all sorts of stuff, which we don't have to go into. But yeah, journey-wise to finding some land, you need to really sink into your own belief. I can't stress that enough, because that is what will come across when you speak to someone. And the word there is speak to someone. Don't hide behind an email if you really find a piece of land that you want, because it might not get opened, it might get misconstrued, it's not going to land, it's just not going to work. You got to be brave, you got to put your big pants on, and you just got to knock on the door. That's essentially what I did. I literally just turned up out of the blue, biggest smile I could muster, tried to be friendly, and tried to immediately just you put yourself forwards. People respect that, and it works. So as an example, I probably wrote so many proposals, honestly, so many, and none of them worked. None. Not even a 5% comeback. It just didn't work. And I tried multiple times with different things. And interestingly, people don't ever read what you put down. If something comes through the door and it could have a picture of my pod on it, and I sort of superimposed it on a lake and all the rest of it, everyone just assumed, and I got this from feedback from actually cold calling them, that I just wanted to sell them a pod. I didn't want to be partnership. I didn't want to run my business, but they didn't read a single word that was on there. It's people make snap judgments. You've got to go see them. If you want land, you've got to go see someone, and respect that it's their land, but also respect what you're bringing to the table. So you've got to have that confidence. You've got to say, look, I've got this. And ultimately what's going to bring it over the line is probably, you've got to have a good financial proposition for the landowner. And that's going to really, really help. So yes, that's first stage, really. You've got to get that relationship. And it can be anything. It can be, it's so surprising what people can do with a small space. And I've seen the most amazing tree houses in small, like a small coppice. And kind of go, wow, like get on that. That is brilliant, because not everyone would have looked at that little bit of land and gone, I can do something with that. And so you do have to think outside the box. You do have to work out what's there. If it's a small bit of land, then I would go high end. I would go look at the market, see what's there, and go, rather than multiple units of a lower value, I would go one unit, make it special, and put all your love into it and see where that takes you. That's what I would do. But yeah, you need to take rejection, and don't take it personally. It took me a while to not do that, because when you've made something and you love it, and someone turns around and goes, no, stuff. Yeah, I had one person look at my proposal and kind of go, oh, so it's a bit like a floating caravan then. and he was a counsellor, believe it or not. And so my jaw dropped for the right reason. But yeah, so you've got to learn to take things from people, because it's just the way it is, and not everyone's going to see things how you do. And that is the beauty of, everyone having a different point of view, how they see things, how they exist in the world. But, if you choose something, and you choose, the beautiful thing for me about doing Lilypod, and I think anyone who's reached into any sort of entrepreneurial business, is that it's a really good reflection of how you want to show up. And that's what I feel like I've managed to achieve is, this is me showing up. This is me, and so it is quite a deeply personal thing that I've done. But yeah, it feels deeply satisfying to be able to do that.
What you touched on there is something that I've noticed since the decade plus years that I've been in this industry, and probably the reason why I've hung around so long, otherwise I would have moved on, is the fact that this isn't just hospitality. It doesn't just attract a certain type of person who wants to, make their average daily rate as high as possible, their occupancy as high as possible, and and cream the money off the top, offering a subpar service. Actually, this is a lot of people who put their heart and soul, their sweat, their toil, their inspiration into something, and really want to make it special for both their family and the lifestyle that they want, but also the guests, so the guests can enjoy it. And in your situation, the third party, which is the landowner, to make something really special on their land. And I think that you've really summed it up well there, that it really does attract people like yourself who are a bit different and have a bit more heart and soul in this whole industry. And that is absolutely why I love it. So I think it's fantastic what you've done. I really do. And I love it. And I know that it's going to be really successful. And the fact that I've been a tiny little part of it has been just, for me, a real
your help
blessing.
has been your help has been really, you know what, it's been really grounding, and I love that. So thank you. Loads.
Most welcome.
You need, I think, when you're dealing with anything like this and you're self-employed, oh my God, you can easily get swamped by it all. It's lovely to be able to have someone like yourself who can go, just going to ground you now with look, X, Y, and Z, because if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to be all right. And I am doing X, Y, and Z, and funny enough, I'm going to be all right. So you were saying about some advice. I think the other part of advice is I think for me anyway, is not particularly when I was looking for land, and particularly when it had been a long time, choose who you speak to, choose who you get that energy back from, because that's really important. Because particularly if you're feeling anxious or worried or on the fence, or you've had a planning application that got rejected, then that can hurt. You've put a lot of energy into that and money, and that can hurt. Speak to the right people, and what I mean by that is someone who's been your supporter, someone who's been championing you. Talk to them, because they'll give you that energy back that you probably need to get back going. Speaking to someone who might kind of go, well, there we go, what are you going to do now? You're going to move on, because you don't want that. And for me anyway, I didn't. So when I spoke to some people, I had that come straight back at me, and I found it, I was like, no, I can't, I don't want that messaging at the moment. I need support, and I need, because I so believed in what I was doing. But it's always nice when someone helps reflect that back, because it gives you that resilience that you will need for sure, to then kind of go on.
And to spark the determination to get through those various obstacles that you're inevitably going to get, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, because, for sure. They are part of the journey, aren't they? So, it's you know how it is. I mean, like, obstacles are everywhere, aren't they? I mean, if you choose to see them as that, but I mean, like, the stuff always gets in the way, which you might not have expected. And so, that can shoot you off into an amazing tangent, which so sometimes you've got to, you do have to embrace it, don't you? Because you just don't know.
Well, you've really kickstarted something now. And I think, what's your dream about where you're going to go next with your project?
Oh, I love thinking like this, to be honest, because I feel like for the moment, I want to sink into just giving the site more, because it's a big site, it's a big lake, and it's going to have 4 pods on. That's what the planning permission was. They're going to have, I mean, God, I could have probably stuck 10 on there. It's got so much space. But again, does that sit with your core values? Does that sit with what you want to attract? And does that sit with what you want to bring in? That idea of the nature, the luxury, the environment, how does it sit with that? And of course it doesn't. And so you work with what's there. But then the fun bit is, like, what does sit with that environment? Like, I love cooking. I love cooking outside. So, I need a kitchen garden there. So I'm quite looking forward to sort of, like building fun outside stuff, because if I'm finding it fun to use, to build, to engage with, your guests are too, guaranteed. So like building building swings in trees, buildings, like you say, like a nice polytunnel where you can grow herbs because you've got your pizza oven and you can go in there and you can pick what you want and you can just have that sort of fun. It's winter time, so my head turns to building a sauna. I'm quite keen on that idea. I mean, it's a good point to look at what environmentally works for me. So hot tubs, big no-no. Yeah. For loads of different reasons. It's weird because so when I first launched, I didn't know how to launch in that sense, and so my first launch was with Airbnb. And so it's funny when you do their ticky boxes to do with what's your project got, and because I'm sustainably off grid, it was blank almost. I didn't have hair dryers, I didn't have TVs, there were so many things I didn't have. And then Airbnb kept sort of emailing me, kind of going, "Are you sure you filled it in properly? Your site looks like you haven't finished." And I was just like, it was so frustrating. But it made you think that's interesting, isn't it? How things are put forwards. And so yeah, what works. So if there was a sustainability list on there, oh my God, I think I could just flood it with things that
ticking every box.
That the guest could enjoy. But it is, so it's interesting how that, I think that people are just catching up with that, particularly on those sort of platforms. I noticed on Cool Stays that they're just introducing their like an eco page. So obviously, there's a ticky box type where you're at, but at least they've got an eco page, and it's asking you active questions to do with how are you insulated, how are you powered, what have you done to minimize this, and how have you done to support that. And that's a step in the right direction, which is absolutely brilliant. Because, and keeping back to your original question to do with how do I see it moving forwards, I love coming up with ideas that are going to be basically, because it's off grid and sustainable, you don't have to compromise. It doesn't have to be that way. You might have to re-educate your guest to do with the expectation of things, but on the whole, it's not a compromise at all. I mean, a really small but really good example of that is I was looking for linen, bed linen. I know it sounds a small thing, but when you start going through all the details, actually it's like, well, bed's a massive part of your stay. You want it to be comfortable, you want it to be luxurious, you want it to feel good. And so I looked at what's sustainable, and so I bought some bamboo bed linen, not having ever used it before. Oh my God, it's just amazing. And so I've got a backup kind of like Egyptian cotton linen, what I thought was the normal go-to. It's nowhere near as good. It doesn't even come close. And it's a good example of bamboo is hyper sustainable. Everyone knows that. It's and it is for a really good reason. And the fact that you can make really luxurious soft material from it, it's good. It's really nice.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be really interested to know how well that cleans, because as we know,
at the moment I've been not bad. I've had one guest who got some fake tan on it. And that it's still coped. Actually, I thought I was going to have to lose it, but it took about 3 washes. But at the moment, it's cleaning really well. It's coming up beautifully white. I mean, they've not gone through a hard season, so I'll see how that goes. But it makes a really nice bed. I mean, we don't iron. I mean, you can't. 1, I don't have the time. 2, it's not part of our ethics to give people an ironed, but it makes a beautiful bed, if that makes any, it makes a really clean bed. I don't know what it is about the bamboo, but no, I love it. It's good.
In recent years, the amount of times the host has said to me, I've had trouble with a guest and fake tan. The amount of times I've heard that is just unreal.
I think you warned me about it, or someone did, didn't they, that it might happen. And sure enough, it happened. I think and then when it's there, it's on everything, isn't it?
It really is.
Owls, and you're just like, oh no. but yeah. But
There you go. So if somebody wanted to come and visit you to check out the wonderful part of Devon where you've set up, how would they get in touch with you? How would they find out more?
Well, a few different channels, to be honest. So we have just launched with Cool Stays, so people should be able to find us on there. Obviously, our website, lilypod.uk. We've got everything on there. And when guests do book, we use TouchStay. And so TouchStay is a digital guidebook system, and we've populated that with all the luxury things to be able to do, from, walks, runs, pubs, of course, spas, beaches. I mean, West Devon, with where we are, it's kind of like the border between Cornwall. And so you've got, if you want to head further to the west, you've got Tintagel. It's 45 minutes. And that sort of area is just gorgeous coast, isn't it? You drop down to the south, which is about an hour. You've got the sort of Plymouth, Salcombe, beautiful area around there. Like, really love. I love Nosmayo. And again, we put those little highlights on, or you can ping north. And obviously you've got another national park. You've got Exmoor and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a spot. We've managed to land it, and so people are going to really enjoy themselves, I reckon.
Best of both worlds, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hey.
Well, I'm going to leave all of those links in the description, so people can just click on those and come and visit. And oh my goodness me, I would love to hear more as your story progresses. But you're part of the club anyway, so we're in constant contact. And it'd be really great actually if in a few months you come back on the podcast and just talk us through kind of other lessons that you might have learned since you've launched and been operating for maybe a summer.
Definitely. Hey,
and things you've learned.
That'd be huge. Every day is a school day at the moment. So I can imagine it going. It's bonkers. It really is.
But that's life, isn't it? Every day is a school day, especially at the moment.
Totally. Yeah. It's funny how you, when, so the launch of Lilypod has meant that I've totally stopped what I was doing. And so I was involved in, I ran a building company, and I was totally like, I needed to leave. I knew I needed to leave. I knew I needed to leave years ago, and it was my company. I'd made it, and so I still wanted to leave. And so I had too much energy and passion to want to be and do something else.
Yeah.
And it was just a few days ago, the rain had really come in, and the lake levels changed quite a lot. And so I keep an eye on the pod and see what's there, and it was unusually high. And so my day of work was to kind of get a kind of like a wetsuit on, and I went onto the outlet to find out what was causing the problems. And then I walked the outlet of the lake, which helps keep it sort of its level, which is a tributary that then joins into the river. And it was during that walk that I'd found that there was like fallen trees that had created a natural dam. So I'd not really thought about, one, what an awesome day of work it was. Two, it was just so different for me. It was totally different. And then we had to get a digger in the end to like pull out the like this stop, and then suddenly the sluice gates were open, and and it only took about like 6 hours, and the lake level just like significantly dropped back to its normal level. It was just, what a day. What an interesting. It's another thing to do, it's another thing to learn, it's another thing to clock as well, because the tributary joining the river is probably like 300-400 meters away, so it wasn't on my radar to check. And it was it was a good example of just like, well, there you go, every day really is different.
Another day at the office, not
that's it, isn't it? Really. It's funny because you get up, you have a plan, you go to work, as it's I went to the lake. I don't describe it as work, because you know what it's like when you're self-employed. You just you have to believe in your work enough that you're just there, aren't you? You're just there and you're doing it. What an unusual day. What a brilliant day.
Absolutely. But I hope that it's all sorted out now, especially with the amount of rain that we've had recently. It's great now. But it's good to know, isn't it? It's good to know that. It's good to know how these things work, because obviously they're all connected, and
and we have a waterfall, and mega gallons must come into that lake. And so where does it all go? And so it was interesting to sort of keep learning what you're doing.
And really learning the heart and soul and the very life, and not only the biosphere of the lake, but how it actually, almost the heart, the blood running through its veins, which is obviously just water, but and how that flows.
You're totally right, and it is. You need to, I think with any project, to be honest, you need to sink into it and you need to learn it, because there's loads of, like, the amount of species of different plants and stuff that I've learned through being exposed to them and kind of going, what is what? It's a massive site. I've never had a piece of land that big before. It's like the biggest gardening project I've ever had. And we've not even touched on we made an island. I say an island, but there was a bog at the side of the lake. It wasn't that attractive, and it was just but I knew it could be something. And so I was going to build maybe those lovely wooden walkways that you see, that like stilted, and that they take you through a journey, which I still think is beautiful. I love things like that. But it would be over a bog, and it's just never that attractive. It was just like, it's no matter how nice I make the walkway, it's still not going to work. And so because it's an old lime quarry, it feels so behind the pod is all the so they when they go hunting for lime, let's say they find 10% lime, and 90% of all the rock and all that sort of the waste product just gets put behind us. That's all got trees, and it's all grown now, so it's all, you feel really enclosed. But the beauty of it is that we were able to take some of it and put it back into the lake. And so we ended up putting 150 tons back into the lake in this bog, and made this beautiful area now. And then we planted it up with wildflower, just to help. Well, it just fits our ethos. One, it's beautiful. Two, it pulls in so much insect life. It's just incredible. And so it was the most amazing thing to actually be able to do. And I didn't expect to do it at all. I expected to go down there this year, build a pod, float it and get all that work. And then I ended up spending months just building like a little nature reserve. But it was, and it's all for pod 2, that one, as well as everyone could enjoy it. So now it's something that you can walk on, be part of, and it takes you 25 meters out into the middle of the lake. That's the scale of it, and it's lovely. It's beautiful. Really, really worth it. So that's where number 2 is going to sit. So this
is your project evolving, and you're evolving with your project, aren't you? Your skills, your abilities.
That's exactly it. But that only happened through being on the land or being part of it. You don't. It's very difficult for me anyway. When I first, you could see somewhere. It's not until you interact with it and start being there and hanging out and just feeling what the place is and what it needs. And so I've just started. So I've got a minimum of 10 years at this place. So I could, how it's going to look even in a couple of years would be really different, I think.
Absolutely, and it's very exciting that you're working on pod 2 already, and you have more pods in the pipeline, as it were. And I for one cannot wait to see how your project evolves over time, even more so than it has already. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you, Sarah. Likewise, really
love it. Love our little chats. Well, they're very rarely little, are they? But love our chat. Just a reminder of your web address. So that's Lilypod with a Y, Lilypod.uk. Go on over there. Anyone who's really intrigued about what Carl has produced, go and have a look, and check it all out and get in touch with Carl. I know that you would appreciate that for sure, even with some feedback. Definitely. So great to speak to you, and I shall see you very soon.
All right then, take care now. Bye bye.
Take care.